Alright, this is probably one of the very first commentaries that I've made. So, yeah, this should be interesting. So, what this is a pretty good New Orleans game on Tears of the Desert, usually referred to as Tears of the Cruiser. But I'm going to be basically showing you some demonstration of some of the techniques I like to use with the New Orleans. Hopefully this video is informative and it might even help your gameplay. Alright, so starting off, I'm looking to head towards C, just to kind of see what's out there, and hopefully a carrier can give us some spotting. And if I'm lucky, the enemy DD will push a little bit too far into C, and I may be able to radar him for some early damage. So that's my plan. Huh. UI is glitching out a little bit, but sometimes it does that in these replays. Okay, in this instance right here, one of my real life friends actually started talking to me. He was trying to tell me something, so I get a little bit distracted here, and well, you can kind of see what happens next. Yep, that's awkward. That is real awkward. So yeah, this can sometimes happen, but notice what I do next. Because I kind of get myself in a little bit of trouble here with that oopsie. So I know the Bismarck is spotted, and I'm not, so I'm going to distance myself as far away from the Bismarck as I can, so that any stray shells aimed at him don't hit me. And now most people right here, they would attempt a turn, like a turn left, a turn out. But that's really, really, really risky because the planes are coming in. If you turn out, it's really, really easy for the planes to drop you, and also you're giving broadside to a bunch of ships. Also, I don't shoot because I know that the planes aren't going to be here for very long because of my AA, the Bismarck's AA, and our carrier is also giving fighters. So I know I can stealth up after this, and it really isn't worth the risk of trying to shoot because I'll be detected for longer, and with that many battleships coming at us, I want to get out of here as fast as possible. So I already know that I'm gonna have to kite these guys. So it's actually taking a little bit longer than it should, but again, I have a clean shot on all these guys, but I don't fire because that would get me killed. That's a really, really big rookie mistake, is being too trigger happy. Most people would fire at that, and that would get them killed. I wait till I'm undetected. I know that they're not going to be within my spotting range. I see that the Yugamo is all the way over there, so he can't spot me in my turn. So I'm going to use this opportunity now to turn out and try to make my escape, because I'm no use to the team dead. And now that I'm turned away, I know they're distracted, I can start opening fire. And since they're also going to be focusing on that Bismarck because he's much closer and he's the more immediate threat, I know I basically have free shots. I'm not paying that much attention to my angle here, even though I do keep myself fairly angled in between shots. Not really active dodging is really quite as hard as I can. So I'm trying to focus a little bit more on landing these shots right on their superstructure, starting fires, that kind of thing. So right now, if you notice, one of our DDs is completely AFK. The Benson over there, completely AFK. Our Bismarck, to the right of me from this angle, is also completely AFK. And our Miyoko is not exactly the smartest Miyoko player out there. He's giving a huge broadside to all these battleships. So the only thing I can do is be super, super annoying and kite away. Do some damage, whittle these guys down, so maybe when whatever happens at A, and basically I can basically soften these guys up for the rest of my team once that engagement eventually happens. It's not going to happen for a while, though. But I'm trying to get in as much free damage as I can, which is basically damage without taking any return fire, because they're focused on my teammates over me. And that's the only thing I can do right now, so that is what I'm going to do. And notice how as soon as he fires, I keep a certain angle, and as soon as he fires, I slow down and turn out. It's a really effective strategy for throwing off a lot of battleship aim. A lot of battleship players, it's really hard for them to deal with that. So I can do it again. It's full slow down, full turn out, and he whiffs his whole salvo. I'm also not going at full speed. I kind of want to maintain this distance, because if I go full speed, I'll be out of my own shooting range. Like, I'll be 16, 17 kilometers away. So I'm really switching in between half and 3/4 throttle, just to keep that distance, because 14 kilometers is a pretty safe distance. I can still accurately hit him, while at the same time, he's going to have a hard time hitting me. And our Bismarck's quite AFK, so there's not really too much I can do to help him. I would like to shoot that destroyer, but the problem is, by turning to get my front guns on the destroyer, I'd be giving these battleships way too much of my broadside. So I'm just trying to set fires on this Bismarck, basically. Because I know his damage control's on cooldown, so if I set a fire, it's going to stick. Otherwise, I might be firing armor piercing. It does a little bit more direct damage, and it's harder for him to heal up. Oh, and our Bismarck woke up. Well, that's good, I guess. A little sooner would have been nice. Also, if you notice there, I actually led the Bismarck somewhat less than I would have. That's because I know I have a fire on his front section, so if I aim, I under-lead a little bit, it's very likely for me to get a fire on his back section and get double fires when he doesn't have damage gone. So I'm gonna try to help our battleship, our Bismarck that had been AFK, out as much as I can, but he's basically doomed. If he had turned out, he might have been okay. He might have been able to kite away, but as it is, he's completely screwed. So the only thing I can do is basically just keep my guns firing, do some damage. And that's the thing about the New Orleans. It's a support ship. It's really hard for it to solo carry, but if you play it right and just be like, the mindset to play New Orleans is just be as completely annoying to the enemy team as you can. One thing I really like to do is to do a flank. So say we have both teams' battleship forces basically facing off against each other. I like to use my stealth to go to the side of the enemy battleships and just start plinking at them. Sometimes they'll get pretty pissed off, and they'll take their guns off your battleships, in which case you just use your stealth to stealth up again while they're turning their turrets. Again, I'm just kiting away because there's really no point in me to try to engage these guys head on. Like, I'm just gonna lose health. Like, I'm gonna lose trades versus an Iowa, a New Orleans, and a Bismarck if I try to turn in on that. And I think they gave up chasing me for the time being. So right now, this is actually quite winnable. Even though we're massively down points, we can we're taking back a cap. But since they're actually running away, I want to be closer to the fight, and since I have this really nice stealth buffer, 9.1 kilometers, or 9.0 kilometers, I forget which, I can turn back in. And right now what I want to do is that I think their Yugamo is probably going to try to protect B cap, because a lot of our heavy ships are pushing into B. That Yugamo, I'm going to guess, is probably right around the E, is going to try to put himself at the E6 area and dump torps from B to the A direction and try to catch some of our heavy ships. So where I want to be is closer to B. That way I could possibly radar the Yugamo. So he's the last DD on the enemy team alive, and probably the biggest threat to winning right now. So what I actually wanted to do was go through this channel and then turn left and kite away, and assuming that the enemy would kind of try to push into B, or there'd be a standoff between B and C. But the carrier actually throws a bit of a monkey wrench into my plans. I thought the carrier was mostly deplaned by now because it's a ranger in a tier 9 match, and he had been striking not only me but some of our battleships as well. But he does have fighters, so I can't make the turn left around the island because I'd be exposing myself to the Iowa, and he could easily insta-delete me. So I simply can't do that. I just have to hug the island. I popped my Def A here. In retrospect, I shouldn't have done that, but I just needed those fighters off of me as soon as possible. So my window of opportunity is actually closed. Even if the planes are gone, at this point I'm fairly certain if I turned left, the Yugamo would be able to spot me, because I'm fairly certain he's just somewhere in between B and C. And if I get spotted making that turn, there's a very, very good chance that either the Iowa, the Bismarck, or both could Citadel me. I really don't want to be put at an HP disadvantage at the moment, or dead, because this is going to be a very hard game to carry. So I pop in some free damage on the Iowa. He's not even looking at me, so I know I can get away with this. Just pop off 2 salvos, maybe get some DOT damage over time on him. Just get a fire cooking. And I actually pop around the flank here, because I know that their battleships are exchanging fire with the main battleship force on my team, the main heavy ship force on my team. So basically, I'm going to force whoever I'm shooting at to either focus on our battleships or focus on me. And transitioning between focusing on our battleships and focusing on me is going to take time. Like, he's going to have to turn. He's going to have to turn those turrets. And that puts a lot of pressure on this guy. So even though I'm not really doing that much damage, I'm just pissing him off. Like, I'm trying to take pressure off of our Nagato. Because our the Bismarck can easily overmatch the Nagato. The Nagato's on kind of low health, so if I can take pressure off the Nagato, I can help carry. And he actually chose to focus on me instead of the Nagato. So that actually works in my favor. That was a little bit unlucky there. I was pretty sure I had dodged those. So my goal right now is to set a fire. And after I set a fire, I can probably switch to armor piercing with the angle that he's giving me. It would work out a little better. Okay, there's my fire. And he actually blew damage con earlier, so he's going to burn out. But the reason I keep shooting and don't try to stealth up is because he's almost within my detection range, and the carrier planes are going to spot me anyway. So I switched to armor piercing just to finish him off as fast as possible, so he gets he doesn't get his next salvo on me. And fire finishes him off, which is nice. And this is where the decision to use the defensive AA on those fighters earlier comes to kind of bite me in the ass. He has dive bombers up, so he's going to bomb me. Not too much I can do. I'm going to try to swing right to dodge, but I also don't want to give too much of an angle to the Iowa. And, well, there is the carrier. There's also the destroyer, but the thing is, I can't kill the destroyer. He's at the very, very edge of my potential radar range, and the other guys on my team are quite preoccupied, so there's no real point in going after the destroyer right now. I go after the carrier because I know we're down points, and if I can nail this carrier, he isn't deep laned, and if I can nail this carrier, first we'll get a lot of our points back, and second, there isn't a strike threat to our remaining battleship. So carrier forces me to turn this way to avoid his torps. And I don't turn back in because there's an enemy New Orleans chasing me. If I turn back in to try close distance with the carrier, what's gonna happen is that New Orleans can fire AP and he can get a lot of damage on me, which I definitely do not want. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna very, very, very slowly kite away from this carrier. I'm going parallel to the carrier, so I'm not opening distance, so I can get accurate gunfire and whatnot. But I'm going I'm going parallel to the carrier, but perpendicular to the enemy New Orleans. So the New Orleans does not have a good profile against me to citadel me or otherwise. I'm checking where the New Orleans is. And even though I'm taking these precautionary measures, he does manage to hit me somewhat decently with AP. Yeah, there it is. See? Even though I'm giving him a very, very, very shallow angle. So my goal right now, try to DPM this down this ranger. Hopefully I can set a fire or two, and then I can deal with the New Orleans. And here comes the AP again. But since I'm just not giving him an angle, he's not going to do that much damage, and I know that. I'm also playing with my speed a little bit to try and mitigate the damage. And here come his dive bombers again. I'm actually out of defensive A at this point. He misses his bombs. So now, I'm going to fight this New Orleans. Since I'm kiting him, since he's coming towards me, I have a fairly distinct advantage. The only problem is I basically kited myself into an island. So I either beach myself at an angle and keep firing, or I have to sacrifice the use of my front two turrets while they turn around and I kite the other way. Because he has a health advantage, he's on 15,000, I'm on 10,000. I'm actually going to kite away instead of slowing down and just keeping angle and letting him close distance, because I don't want that. I want to keep distance while I'm at a health disadvantage. And funnily enough, he is giving quite an open angle for me to use AP on, so I switched to AP. And I get a little bit greedy here. I aim a little bit lower than I would have, because I really want to citadel this guy. What ends up happening is just a little bit too low, and I splash in front, which is unfortunate. So now the New Orleans is a quite low citadel. But does not matter too much anyway. Very unfortunate I didn't citadel him there. And our carrier is actually forcing him to turn out even further, which is nice. And that was also very unfortunate, wasn't the citadel. But I believe my next salvo should be good, because he's not really turning away, because I think he doesn't want to hit the rock. So there's the citadel, and this should finish him off.
Enemy cruiser foundered.
Alright, so at this point, minute 30, they're up by 50, but we have 2 cap points. I'm fairly certain if nobody dies and the destroyer doesn't go to B, we can win this. So as long as our Hipper zones the Yugamo out of B, which is going to be really tough for him to do, because the Yugamo just has such a massive spotting advantage over him, we can win this. Yugamo does have Hydro, though, German Hydro, so probably shouldn't be able to get hit by any torps. And unfortunately, there is the Yugamo. If I was the Hipper right now, I probably would have activated the hide. Maybe it was on cooldown. I don't know, but unfortunately, he does get killed by these torps. If I was the Hipper, I would have turned around and tried to force the destroyer out of B. If those torps hadn't hit, because even if I'd have to face tank in Iowa for a little bit, if that destroys in B, there's zero chance of winning. But um, if I was going up against the Iowa, there'd be a chance the Iowa would get bad RNG. He'd fluff a couple shots, force a destroyer out of B, and then possibly would win. At this point, the game's pretty much over. 22 seconds left. I'm gonna try to do a little bit more damage on this Iowa. You never know. Maybe the carrier can RNG detonate him. But yeah, it's pretty much over at this point. I did what I could. This isn't really like flashy gameplay or like super sick plays or a super hard carry. This is a really, really good demonstration of what to do as a New Orleans, and hopefully this guide was helpful. All right, cool. That's it for it.